Hello, guys. All right. It's that time again. It is tournament time. And this time we have a major, the summer major. Don't count on anything too special. You get some stamped balls if you place well, and a special little banner, which is nice to have, nice to represent for one of these tournaments. But it is no greater or lesser than another tournament in terms of, quality chests and balls and things of that nature. But it is a major nonetheless, and we get all new holes. So for this tournament in particular, the biggest thing I am focusing on for you guys to remember, since this is an expert guide, I expect for the most part you have a good grasp of how to play holes. A lot of these are laid out in ways that are very obvious to play. The key things to take in mind are going to be um, elevation changes, so percent changes to calculations. For example, hole one here. Um, I am going to say 8 out of 10 times the left, the yellow line, is going to be your play. That is with any form of headwind, if we have left to right wind, side wind, and just slight tailwind, that is not right to left tailwind, then we're going to go yellow line. You want to get some decent distance on this. If you don't get it far enough down the fairway, you will not be able to reach this rough bump that we're going for here. So you want to definitely have a power 3 ball, probably going to take a slight bit of overpower, unless we have a decent amount of tailwind and we're going that route. I like right spin. Right spin. That is because the fairway slopes right to left, and the right spin will keep you from rolling into the rough. Second shot is the big one that we need to pay attention to, this percentage. The first shot is a 15% over adjustment because it is slightly downhill. But if you, unless you're aiming real fine along that rough or towards the rocks, it's not super important. The second one for this rough bump is very important because your target is a very small patch of rough. It is a 20% underplay because this is an uphill shot. Most of these shots we're playing today are going to be downhill, so you're going to be very in the habit in this course of overplaying. This one is underplay. Now keep in mind, if you're at min club, it's 20% of min club, not 20% of max. So club distance does play its normal factor here. On the right side, I really like this shot if we have a good heavy tailwind, especially right to left tailwind. Reason being, you can get it all the way up to the end of this fairway up here. When you're up here, you have a very straight line at the pin with very little hazards in the way. It's still tricky to calculate because it's going to overplay about 30% there. And your ball is hitting a slope, and it's pretty slopey everywhere. So it's not an easy shot to hit. However, I've gotten very close almost every time. I'm not ending up 10 yards away. I'm not ending up in the rough or bunker somewhere. I am right by the pin, no matter what. So I do like this route for a safe birdie if we have heavy tailwind. It is the safer birdie. Less of an eagle chance, but it's still there as well. Yellow line, higher eagle chance, better play if the wind allows. Hole 2, par 3. For this one, I really only suggest this route. You can do this with most any wood you're going to have in your bag. I really prefer the sniper. However, if we have headwind, you might want to think about a bigger club if you want to take the same shot, or you can bring it down a fairway. But keep in mind, you're going to need a decent amount of backspin. If it's headwind, like 5 bars will do fine. It's a pretty heavy backspin shot. If, let's say, we're talking just side wind, it's going to be around 4 backspin. And I also will always do a little right spin, unless if we have a directly left to right tailwind, you should not need any spin other than backspin. Between the slope of the fairway and the direction of the wind, it should push you in towards the green. Maybe one side spin if you're really trying to pin in that ace, but that's going to be a later round adjustment. Hole 3, hard to tell from this picture, but now the left slope, the pink line, is an uphill play. I really like this route for a left to right wind. The first shot, like I said, uphill, so wind is going to affect your ball about 10% less. It's not huge, but it's going to have a lesser play. You want to preferably power slice if you're using a Thor. If you're using an Apocalypse, a normal full curl will definitely do the job. Full right spin, a little bit of top spin. You do not need to overdo it. Reason being, the next shot is severely downhill, so you can get a ton of distance on it, unless we're dealing with direct headwind on the second shot, in which case I would suggest going yellow route anyways. So, but if we take this pink route, especially, opening round, first round through, minus 10% on that drive. Second shot, preferably try to get on the right side of these rocks. That is going to make your play much, much, much easier. It's going to be a 40% extra adjustment to the wind. You're going to likely going to be aiming at the end of this first little island fairway here. And 3 to 4 bars top spin and 3 bars left spin if our wind is coming left to right. If it's right to left, then I just like 1 bar of left spin. The gold line, really like this one with a right to left tailwind. You can, in fact, pull out a power 4 or 5 ball with severe tailwind and possibly reach green in 1. But we'll talk about that later as the week progresses and we see what wind to actually get. But really, the normal way we're going to approach this shot is full power, full top spin, full left spin, curl left, and remember a 10% extra wind adjustment. And the object is to roll as far up this fairway as we can. If we get far enough, we can be aiming left of this bunker here on our second shot. But at a shorter distance, you're going to be aiming in front of the bunker. Where that is depends on exactly where you end up. Where we ended up here on this example, you would be aiming likely right around here. You're going to need about 3 bars backspin, unless you're dealing with headwind, then you're going to reduce that. But 3 bars backspin should be enough to slow that ball down to stick somewhere near the green, or near the cup. Hole 4. I'm laying this out like we get some form of tailwind. I have a hard time believing they're going to give us headwind on this hole. Please help me, God. Don't let me be wrong. But the yellow line here is the more likely way we're going to play this. This is just with a slight amount of tailwind, even just a slight amount of headwind, you should be able to make this jump. Headwind, you're going to for sure need a kingmaker. Tailwind, you'll probably want the Titan. And you are going to use curl. I just didn't want this line to interact with the pink line. I wanted to avoid that. So the gold line, you are still using a little bit of curl. Reason being, you're going to want to kind of control against the wind, whichever way it's going. Because you want this ball to go as straight as you can. I usually use about 4 bars topspin. You don't need more. You'll reach plenty far with that, and you don't want to overdo it. If we have severe tailwind, you're going to be taking the pink route, so you won't have to worry about it. That's with now. If you get a heavier headwind, then you're going to go full topspin. If we have direct headwind, there's no way you're going to make this jump, and it's going to be a terrible hole. Likely, you're going to be needing a big dog just to reach green and a par 4, which that's why I say I don't see it. Pink line is full-on tailwind. This is a heavy curl shot. I suggest bringing like an Apocalypse or a extra mile 8 if you have it, but Apocalypse is most likely going to be your weapon of choice here. Full top spin, full curl, a little bit of right spin. I like about 3 bars. And it's going to bounce on onto that second fairway, roll through the rough, and get onto that third fairway. That will leave you with a thorn shot. I apologize. I did not go for the second shot at gold. We'll get there after I finish this one. The thorn shot here, I prefer the full max backspin directly on the green because even the fringe starts sloping down. The fairway slopes and the rough slopes, they're all very heavily sloped. And if you mess up a full backspin shot and then down in that bunker, you may not be able to get out. Remember, 20% less. It's hard to see the minus sign. I apologize. It's 20% less adjustment because you're shooting uphill. Now back to the gold line. If this is our more likely scenario, in fact, so gold line here, I really like aiming off the cliff. I really like it. It'll be either a max Saturn or Goliath or sniper. Or not max sniper, but it'll be a sniper or a maxed Goliath. Maybe a max Saturn, depending the ball you have in. Likely going to be a sniper though, because you want to aim directly into the rocks, not bounce off the green and then into the rocks. You're aiming directly into the rocks, behind the right bunker. I'm sorry. You want to use 3 bars topspin. Topspin is going to act like backspin once it's in the air again. So the topspin will actually cause the ball to hit the green and then act like backspin on the green and start slowing down and get you to stay on the green. If you use backspin off of that rock, it's going to act like topspin. And when you hit that green, it's going to go rocketing right down that hill. So make sure you use topspin when you're aiming into the rock. Like I said, 3 top, 3 right, slight right curl. Trust your ball guide for where you're aiming on the rock. If you feel like 3 topspin is a little too much, draw back a touch, and vice versa. It's going to all depend on your exact spot and everything, but that is a very good starting point for your measurements and your adjustments. If you do not want to do that, then bring the Saturn to this hole because you're going to want that backspin. But likely you're going to be aiming at just the end of the fringe, and your odds of actually getting in the hole are actually way less, I believe, than the cliffs, which is why I suggest it. I think you have a better chance of dialing that shot in with the same wind, everything, over the course of 3 rounds than the Saturn shot. So that is why I suggest it. Unless we get full-on tailwind, pink line, thorn shot, that is the way. Don't take the cliff if you have the thorn shot. Hole 5, doozy of a par 5. Really not bad, especially if we get some decent wind. I prefer the gold line. I started off thinking the pink line was the way, but that leaves you with a bit longer of a second shot and a little hard to dial in, especially if we get headwind. On the right side, the gold line, the drive we take, preferably an Apocalypse here. You can bring a Thor, though. That'll work fine. Extra Mile will work fine. You're going to top spin. You can actually, unless we get headwind, quarterback will even do this drive just fine. It's just going to leave you a little shorter, which may make the approach harder. You will definitely have to overpower unless we're getting tailwind on the approach as well. But anyways, no overpower, but you're going to curl it, full top spin, about 2 or 3 right spin. Don't overdo the right spin because you're going to be curling anyways. Unless we have a right to left wind, then you can spin and curl. But otherwise, just use your curl. Use the curl to get to the side. A little bit of spin to help on the initial bounce to direct the ball a little bit to the right and keep it rolling right once it hits. But you do not need to overdo it. If you end up in the rough on the right there, it's going to be very hard to recover in a positive stroke. Second shot, any wood will work. I prefer the sniper here. You'll get any club to get to that green. As long as your sniper's like an 8. If you're a really early expert, if you got in early, you might want to bring a hammerhead or a big dog or something just to make sure you can reach. But sniper 8 and up will reach no problem as long as you're using a power 3 ball. And it's pretty straightforward. It's going to be, depending how high you're reaching up and how far you went up, you know, it's going to be a couple top or a couple back, depending where you're reaching, what kind of wind. It overplays 10% every single shot on this hole. It's all because water. There's not really that much elevation change you have to worry about, but the water affects every shot here. So 10% extra every shot. And other than that, you can trust your ball guide and trust your normal adjustments here. Billy Goat's Bluff, as it's been so dubbed. Um, Two ways I see to approach this hole. First way is going to be the pink line with, say, a Thor's hammer or a rocket, something with significant backspin. And we're going to 7 bars-ish of backspin and left spin. We're going to aim at the bottom of this fairway here. You want to make sure your second bounce and third bounce are not ending up in the rough. Unless we have severe headwind, then the ball guide going off to the rough may be okay because that's actually going to get pushed back. But outside of that, make sure your ball guide is staying on that fairway. Extra 50% adjustment here. So if we have a sniper, just first, we'll say we're using a quarterback for, you know, argument's sake here to make it easy, and the wind is 10 miles an hour, that means you're going to move 15 rings. This overplays a ton. So keep in mind your measurement here when you make this shot. Extra 50% adjustment. If we get a right to left headwind, or I'm sorry, a left to right headwind, so the direction that the rough is going in front of the green, then I suggest playing the rough bump. That is premium rough bump direction because it allows you a lot of room for error. It is also doable with any other wind, basically. Direct tailwind might make it really hard because you're going to have to aim into this cliff, and it's going to make that 15% adjustment really difficult to get right. Outside of that, it's pretty much usable in any wind position, but it's going to be hard, and you're going to have to be precise. But if we get that specific wind, the rough bump is the better play. About 4 backspin, and it'll be about 1 left spin unless we get a right to left wind, then you just need maybe a touch of right spin. I wouldn't even go full bar, half bar or so. Hole 7, par 4. It's one we can reach in one. If the wind is correct, we can reach this in one. I would say it's doable from both sides, but definitely from the left. We're going to count that as our go-to play. Green in one wind or not. You know, if we have a left to right wind, we're definitely going left side. Unless it's headwind, then we're going to go right. But left to right, any kind of tailwind. If it's perfectly like a 130 tailwind going right at that pin, we're going to power slice this, and we're going to try and get that green in one. But any other form of wind, we're going to just worry about getting across. You likely will not even need full topspin. Full topspin will probably get you in trouble, especially if a direct tailwind. I would suggest only like 3 topspin. Full right spin, full. Kingmaker full. And right curl as well. The ball wants to go up that hill as much as you would think it wouldn't because it's uphill. It still really wants to. So fight that and really try to make that ball go right. I can almost guarantee you won't go too right unless your bounce is too right. Like if you had a great shot right and hit the rough, yes, that's trouble. But if you hit that fairway, I can almost guarantee you will not go too right. On a normal drive, that's going to leave you with a short iron approach. You may even be at max distance wedge. Overplay this by 10% every shot here. Pink line, likely headwind or left to right wind. This is the way we're going to go. Pretty straightforward shot here. You're going to use just a touch of side spin to keep the ball to the side you want here, and about a bar or two of backspin. You won't need much, especially because likely we're dealing with this with headwind. Second shot is going to be a long iron. Bring whatever long iron you're most comfortable with. It really will not matter. You're not going to need a ton of backspin. I suggest high level Saturn for the ball guide. I like aiming just before the green. That spot is about, sorry, excuse me. That spot is about the most consistent spot I've seen. It's going to require about 3 or 4 backspin to get that shot to land where you want. And again, remember 10% extra on the adjustment here. All right, this one's tricky. Headwind, I'm going to say Thor's Hammer or Rocket is probably going to be the better of the two plays. Aim just for before the green. As much backspin as we end up needing, it depends on the speed of the wind. 13 mile an hour is going to need less than 10 mile an hour, so it's really hard to give you an exact number here. But it's going to be heavy backspin. That's why I say Thor or Rocket. A high-level quarterback may be enough with something like 13 mile an hour wind. So keep that in mind. Especially if maybe you say throw in a power 2 ball instead, just to have that wind. But you're going to have to measure for an extra 20%. So keep all that in mind when you're making your decision on what to bring here. Likewise, both of these are pretty much played straightforward. Look for the smoothest patch you can find where your ball guide doesn't move as much when you hit it there. And I suggest using the widest parts of the fairway. That's why the dots are about where they are. The bottom one especially will be more center. But you want to give yourself a little room for error, even though if you do have a mistake, you're likely going to end up in the rougher bunker. You want to be in the rougher bunker around the cup than the rougher bunker down at the beginning of this fairway. Your odds of getting that shot to sink or even stay on the fairway again are very slim. So hit the fairway on your first one. That is important. That is the most important part of this. Hit center of the fairway. Use a little bit of side spin to counter the wind. 1 bar, maybe. And a touch of curl. Don't overdo it. You will force yourself off the side of the green. But the key is 20% extra on your adjustment here. Hole 9. This one you can play 2 ways. Both of them, I suggest bringing a heavier wood. Big Dog, Cataclysm, something of that nature. You want distance here. Now, if we get to the weekend round and we have, let's say you go the pink line, and we have perfect pink line direction tailwind, then no, you don't need to go that. You can bring your sniper. Your sniper will reach, and you're going to have to tame it still because tailwind's crazy. So likewise with the yellow. If we have crazy tailwind, you might be able to get, if you're getting your drive down to the very end of this fairway, you can bring it a sniper. But to start off with, bring your bigger wood. We'll go yellow line first. This is the way I actually suggest. As you can see, that yellow line is much, 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 much shorter than that pink line is. That is because you are much, much, much closer to the hole. You have a way higher chance of getting this in there. And if you mess up, you're going to be close range hazard. So you still have a pretty good chance to save yourself. Pink line, you can make a mistake and end up in the rough, let's say around where my black dot is there. And that is not such an easy save. Especially if you've played this hole enough, you know that pink line, that fairway, and that green have bumps all in front of it in that row. So that way is not really the way to take. If we get a very strong right to left headwind, then that might be the only option, unfortunately. But even still, it might be safer to go that way and lay up onto one of these shorter fairways and make a play. I really feel like the gold line is the way to go here. Pink line may be the way if we have a left to right wind, slightly tail on the drive, because that means that we will have that second line tailwind on the second shot where we have a really nice direct shot to the green. That would be the one time I suggest taking the pink. So keep that in mind. Full top spin, full right spin, a little bit of right curl if, let's say, you're using a spin to a Titan ball. You'll need a little curl as well. Unless we have directly left-right wind, then avoid the curl. You don't want to overdo it and go in the rough early. That will definitely ruin your hole. And it's pretty difficult to get the distance to roll into that bunker, at least for most people, if you're taking that bounce there. Now, if you're somehow clearing this on the drive, that's a different game. Power slice may be an option. I'm not sure yet. I haven't really experienced that yet. Haven't seen it either. So I wouldn't go with that until you see someone do it or know it's a thing. But that's pretty much it for this hole. Like I said, both of these wood shots are bigger. I suggest taking the right line rough bump. So you don't need a big dog, but I would suggest something like a hammerhead or a guardian, something with a little bit better distance than the sniper has, and some decent ball guide and some decent accuracy. If you're planning left route, bring your big dog, bring your cataclysm. Unless, like I said, we get tailwind, then you won't need to. But otherwise, I suggest the bigger wood. And like I said, every hole 10%, 10% adjustment here. This is just all water effect. So that is it, guys. That is the rough walkthrough. I will try my best to get my revised guide out as soon as I can for you after I play my expert rounds and see what the wins truly are and how I suggest playing them. Good luck in the tournament, guys. Talk to you later.